Welcome to NFL Daily. I'm Gregg Rosenthal, and I am beyond lucky today to be joined by Patrick Claybon and Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic on our maiden voyage for this show here, NFL Daily, in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio. So this offseason's been a lot. I'm going to talk a little bit first, guys, before bringing you in. It's got me thinking, what brings joy in life and in football, and we're going to talk about that with our segment coming up in the show. But before I do get to you guys, I do want to start by addressing the obvious that this is not the Around the NFL podcast, that we taped our last episode of Around the NFL on May 23rd, and it was a total shock to all of us. And it was very difficult that was the last show, that we're not going to do another. And I know that's going to inspire a lot of emotions from our listeners, from you guys, from anyone that's worked on it, from myself, of course. I get it. Like, I've been going through them too for really six weeks now since we did that last show. I still am. We'll go through them together. I love Dan and Mark, and what we built together with Chris was beyond special. Keisha, Chris's wife, said it perfectly on IG yesterday, that we will always be family, and nothing can take away what we accomplished together. I do just want to thank everyone, especially like the listeners, but also everyone in this room, you two, and that's ever been in this room. You know who you are, and who's in the control room back there, and who's been in the control room over the years, whether it's in Culver City or here, and the listeners too, because y'all helped. You changed all of our lives. You know, you made something so special with us, and you felt like it was always us together. And you stuck with us after Chris died, and we tried not to ask for too much along the way. But I do want to ask for something now, and that's to support the hell out of Mark and Dan and what they're gonna do next. And I love them. I always will, and I want you to support this show too. Give it a chance. Like, give both shows some grace, and be cool. NFL Dailies, it's not gonna be the same show. It's not. It can't be. Wouldn't want it to be. It's gonna be different, and we'll get into how that's gonna be different. But it's gonna be a great show too. Like, I'm really excited. It's as you would say, Jourdan. Like, two things can be true. We can miss that, and this is gonna be something we're gonna be really proud of, and I hope y'all that are listening are too. I'm looking forward to working with so many people. Colleen's gonna be back on the show next week when she gets back in town, and we got Steve Weish and Nick Shook on the show tomorrow, and of course you, Jourdan. Like, welcoming you here is really exciting to me. And Patrick, there's no one I love working more with than y'all, and that's it. I'll let you guys talk a little bit too.
Well, no, and I guess thank you from the standpoint of, obviously personally, and I've said this to you, but from the standpoint of a listener, right? Because like you get guests on a podcast, and the relationship is kind of fundamentally different, and so I felt, right, and feel all the things that a lot of people are feeling, and then like to have this tangential attachment to what you guys built by just being in your vicinity, like over on West Washington Boulevard, all the way to over here, it's been something to experience. And like when I think about how much the show means to so many people, I have to remind myself that there's 4 people in 4 families who the show means so much more to, right? And of course, when you're experiencing those emotions, I'm sitting here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio, right? What you guys built, it provides people with a level of openness and vulnerability and understanding that a lot of people don't get in real life, much less surrounding the discussion of football, right? And so doing that, it grew the game. And there's all of these initiatives, all of these discussions about how to make the game international, right? How to accomplish these things. I can't think of a better way to protect the shield than to have more people carrying it. And that's what you guys did. And you don't get that in an Excel spreadsheet or an earnings report. There's a quality to that the reason that people feel the emotions that they're feeling is because they felt that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love you guys, right? And as you said, I hope that people are able to get 2 properties that they can listen to and be a part of an extended family. But I just sorry. What you guys did is incredible and should be celebrated, and I, in any way that we can, because I haven't known how to react, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I haven't really known what to say or where to be, and people ask questions, and it's just like this was incredible, and I'm glad to have experienced it and been a small part of it.
Yeah, we've had at least like a little time since taping that show. I appreciate all that, Patrick, to process it a little, but obviously letting everyone know, letting the listeners know this week, it's just different, and we're gonna get to the football of it all, but yeah, I do want to hear from you too, Jourdan.
Yeah, I mean, it's that openness that you guys created that it's going to make it really hard for me to get through this next couple seconds here, but it's also that space that you guys created that allows me to be able to try, right? Like the listeners of this show know I am one of them. I've been one of them. I've been, lurking in all the same places they've been lurking for years and years. I've been listening. This podcast to me that you and Mark and Dan and Chris, the heroes that you guys created, that so many other people created, it got me through some really hard stuff. And I don't think for a long time you guys knew that the space you created and the safety you created for people to come in and just sit with people who they thought were a good hang and they liked listening to, but then that space became really an open door into this thing that so many of us are passionate about. And for all the words that we can't use sometimes to describe it because we don't know how, we would turn to you guys. And I would turn to Wes. And football was a closed door for me in a lot of ways for a long time. And the way that he talked about football and the way that he wrote, because that's what I found first, that opened the door for me. And I never got to tell him that. But I was here a couple months ago, Gregg, and I know you saw me staring at the door of this studio and having a moment. And after we recorded that show, I had to tell all of you guys what that meant for me. That was why I was so nervous. The fan base was so nice. I was so nervous. I'm so freaking nervous still. Like, I'm terrified because this is really hard because it matters. This mattered so much to me, and it mattered so much to so many people, and it mattered to you four and your families. And I want to preserve that. I did not build the house that we're sitting in right now. I didn't. I watched and I enjoyed and I supported from afar. And I think now I'm getting tapped on the shoulder in a very small capacity to support up close everybody, to support you, to support Mark, to support Dan. And I'm going to do that because finding this show opened a door to football for me in a way that I didn't know was possible. Football to me is my purpose on this earth. And all I can do is pay this forward to you, to Mark, to Dan, to everybody as best I can, as much as you'll have me, as much as they'll have me. I just want to help keep that door open for people who were like me, who still are like me, who doesn't matter what you look like, where you come from, your knowledge level, like I want to help keep that door open. And that's why I'm sitting here. That's why I continue to support you. That's why I continue to support those two guys and will until I'm done on this planet, because that changed my life.
And so, like, beautiful and bittersweet and just life, man. And this happens so much when I think about the impact Chris has had on all of us, that you're saying those words and sitting in that seat and everything in his studio, because like how you approach football, it reminds me of Wes. Like it's one of the reasons I was really, I've told you this before, but it's one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on the show initially. It's why I'm so excited that you're part of this show. When you say football is your purpose on this earth, like it can mean everything to us, and we also kind of can put it to the side that it means nothing. And it's just this thing we're incredibly passionate about. But the way you see the game, that you want to understand it, because I do think it's the one thing this is going to be my 21st season doing football since I started at Roto-World, and I still love it so much. And we're gonna get to what we're really looking forward to in this season shortly. But like the gap, and this was when I started, what I realized after 3 or 4 months, because I loved all sports, was like the gap between what we know and what we don't is so much greater than any other sport. And trying to like fill that gap is what gets me really excited about NFL Daily, that it's going to be different, but like we're going to have this journey. And it's been a lot this off season. Thank you everyone that's listening for your patience too, because I know it's been silent, and the uncertainty was tough. And like I want to be like really open in this show when we do these shows, and just honest, and like look, full transparency. Like my family was going through, some serious health issues that are very uncertain during all this. And when this happened, that was part of everything, part of the decisions and what I'm going to do. And I'm so happy. Like there's like great news on that front recently. And man, like this week, like the sun's been shining better, and food is tasting better. And it all puts it in perspective of, what matters in life, and that football can matter. As stupid as it is, like I find joy in this football thing. You guys do. I couldn't quit it if I tried. And so we're gonna celebrate it and try to figure it out, and talk about what we are looking forward to, and the joy that we're gonna get out of this season as training camps start to get going next week. And we'll do that in our first segment after the break. Okay, we are back on NFL Daily, and apologize for that hard transition from whatever ad just played to what we said ahead of the break, and what we're going to say now too, which I'm really excited about. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since we podcasted, Patrick and Jordan, obviously you too. And like we're close. The Texans are showing up next week. And I was debating like whether we get back in the studio, this week, next week. I want to get ready to go, and I wanted to like set this first segment up of just like, what are we looking forward to? Like, what is the things during this off season for me? That's how I thought about it during this off season, which been a little challenging, obviously, but I still been staying on top of the football of it all. Like, what am I looking forward to the most? What do I think is going to give me the most joy as we are looking ahead to the 2024 season? And I want to start this with Patrick Claybon.
It's over. The common theme with all the things that I'm looking forward to is most of it is uncertainty. Right?
I like that.
Because pushing back towards this idea of how much we don't know, right? What part of the things that you were talking about earlier. Okay, so last season, only 19 teams converted more than 50% of their fourth down attempts. And I say only because in the 2 previous years, it was 23 and 24. We raved about how good the Eagles were at fourth down last season. They finished at 73%. The year before, the Rams had the lead at 78%.
The thing they had the lead at.
The one thing that the 2022 Rams were good at. I think... Right, it would go back to 2018. Anthony Lynn's Chargers converted 87% of their fourth down attempts. They only went for it 8 times. They got 7 of them. The idea of how going for it on fourth down is always better is slowly starting to not become better because I think teams are getting better at defending all of these fourth down attempts. And so it's pushing towards this uncertainty of what's going to happen at fourth down. It's all a cycle. And I'm excited to see that cycle start to come to its fruition. And maybe we're getting to a point where maybe less than half of the league is converting 50%. I don't know, but it's going to be fun.
So I'm shocked, actually. I'm being serious that Claybon started with like sort of an analytic bent to
He's
it.
going to make me cry a second time.
right. What he's looking forward to. Because I hear those numbers and I still think, okay, we got a little ways to go. Like, okay, I mean, you're saying only 19 teams are over 50%. It's like, okay, that's still pretty good. And some of those percentages are pretty high. But you do speak to what's the natural evolution of anything analytic or, you know, the Moneyball effect when baseball started that way. It's like, yeah, once every team starts doing the same thing, then it is increasingly less effective and you have to pivot. I think we're seeing that now in team building when you think about the off-ball linebacker position, like the analytical model of building your team and kind of not worrying about off-ball linebackers was so copied until you got to the playoffs last year and maybe the last couple of years. And it's like, you can point to so many teams, like the Cowboys would be one, certainly the Eagles. And you can point to all these teams that keep losing in the playoffs. And you're like, literally the entire game plan that the other team was making is because your off-ball linebackers are bad. And then you kind of look at like who's got the best off-ball linebackers. They're the best teams in football. They're the best defenses in football. So I hear you on the fourth down. Teams will have to adjust on their short yardage strategy and come up with new stuff. I feel like we still have some. I don't want to stop calling for fourth downs, I guess is my issue.
Yeah.
Like going for it.
I will still be calling for certain coaches who typically don't go for it on fourth down to go for it on fourth down.
What team do you cover on a regular basis?
Speaking the off-ball linebacker thing, we actually call that the Shanna plan. You know, circle the other team's middle linebacker and then just spam that player mercilessly over and over and then like laugh behind the play card that you're doing it. But I think it's interesting because when you see changes like that, when you see teams get really good at going for it on fourth down and also more teams who are understanding analytics meets sorry Patrick, but momentum, feel and flow of the game. When you're seeing the analytics meet some of these like very stereotypical coaching principles, that's the shift that you're starting to see a little bit. You're seeing more and more of that. I mean, you know, again, we joke about it, but Sean McVay hired Stretch out of Tennessee, and he's like one of the game management guys in the league. And even he is who is like one of the most conservative.
Like his full name?
Down.
He's a one-name guy.
John Stryker.
Rihanna.
Stretch is easier because I always say, is it Stretch or is it Stryker? And he's tall, so Stretch.
Well, that's because did they try to hire you first, or?
Well,
because Jordan's too humble about this, but like her getting on them about their fourth down decisions and like writing an article about it
every week.
But there was one I remember in particular last year where you really did it. Like there was a pretty clear before that article and after that article of like how often Sean McVay was going for. I'm just saying. That's
to get back to the point.
But that's true. That's not the first time I'm going to interrupt your point.
Praise deflection is Jordan's number one skill.
Spinning praise, like love your shirt, Patrick. By the way, spinning praise is
like a ninja move.
Yeah. So, but I think the more teams get used to the fact that this is going to be the wave now in the NFL, like what I don't think a lot of people on the outside see is that you literally are starting to structure practices different. You're literally starting to build more time in, not just for a more full play sheet, more full play design out of a fourth down bucket, so to speak, to use sort of like that lingo. You know, you don't often have time to build out a full malleable and adjustable, evolvable fourth down plan in traditional and typical punt on fourth down kind of situations for practice. There is no time in the week. It's not criticizing the coaches who don't do it. And for a long time, most of the league wasn't or hasn't. It's just that there's no time during the week. You got to get to red zone, for God's sake. You got to walk to the bus and install things as you go. You got to troubleshoot during walkthroughs. Like all of these different things with the week of preparation is it's so tight to fit all of those things in. Well, now what you're starting to see, and I heard about this offseason, is more teams building out that scheduled time. It's kind of similar. We're going to talk about it, the new kickoff, building more time during the week, not just for what you're going to do on fourth down and all the situationals that you're going to build into the natural part of the weekly plan instead of those guys are in another department on the other side of the building. No, they're in the coaching rooms now. And that's growing across the league. And then also you're seeing by proxy, teams are getting better at defending it because there's more tape. There's more tape on what you're going to potentially do. There's more data, there's more situations. So if you are seeing that and everything springs back
So
around,
basically everyone's just becoming more like Bill Belichick's been for like 40 years.
It took what 20 minutes for you to bring up Bill Belichick?
I'm just saying.
Like I thought we might.
I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit. All I'm saying is that I think they prepped game management situations on a more consistent and specific level than other teams were. Like when I'm even talking about the Giants back in the 80s and 90s and the Patriots, and that's all. Not that he was perfect about it or that it's all like, it's not about the analytics of it all, but I think
how you build the week.
They literally just spent more time doing that stuff than other teams. I know this because every player that's left there is like, we spent way more time on this stuff.
The culture of communication, I think, in the league has changed a lot.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And so you're not necessarily going to have some like a Bill Belichick maybe taking criticism from the outside and applying it, right? To whereas now there's more communication about the way that people operate. I think people share more now.
More information available.
And so like while you could bemoan like people, quote unquote, like analytics is this all-consuming monster that does everything, everybody does it differently and everybody applies it differently. And you can have, the Shanahan tree coaching half the league, but it can still be different, right?
Right.
Because of this like everything is this meta-analysis, and then we get the analysis of the analysis, and it just creates more uncertainty, which is football.
To that point, though, like we have so much cool information and so much cool math, and like it's such an awesome tool, but nothing actually changes and shifts like what you're noticing until the actual tangible functionality of how the week is planned shifts. And I'm talking scheme, I'm talking position value, I'm talking anything. It doesn't actually start to shift that way until they build in structure tangible things that create those changes that you have to rep it. You have to rep it and rep it and rep it and rep it. And then you start seeing like these things trickle out of buildings during training camps, joint practices. I think across the league are going to be huge this year because that's what's going to bring me a lot of joy because we're going to watch the kickoff.
Is this one of your things?
This is one of my things.
All right, let's get to it.
Yes, it's the new kickoff. I did get to watch like practices of the new kickoff this spring. It rules.
Really?
It's chaos. Nobody knows what they're doing yet, but it rules. But the thing that I wanted to point out is you see, I don't have the specific numbers. Like I'm failing Patrick already. I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, but you're seeing an increase in scheduled joint practices. A huge reason for that, in my theory, is people need a clean sheet, a clean practice, a safe practice with some contact to practice the new kickoff in, and they don't want to show that tape across the league. A couple special teams coordinators were around talking like the first team that figures this out is going to have such an advantage on different teams. And it brought me a lot of joy watching it because it just looks so, you get something
it's so
new.
weird.
It's just, but it was
This is
new.
it. This is what we always talk about on this show. This is like, if you went back and listened to, and I'll do this a few times. This is our first show. This is what we used to talk about on Around the NFL. Like first season, like Wes and I would always like talk about like, why doesn't the NFL innovate more? Why doesn't the NFL change more? Like, and they do compared to other sports, like their ability to change. I think, I don't know. I'm very excited about this too.
Yeah, it's chaos because the kickers, they compare it to like, so if you're thinking about, I guess, golf clubs, which I don't golf, but it is interesting to think about. They're switching different cleats out and trying to see, okay, this like moldable to my foot soccer cleat on my right foot and then a regular football cleat on my left foot. And like, that's the plant foot. And then it's like, using different clubs that are in your bag to have placement, to have precision, to do different things for your return unit, essentially. And then on the other side, I mean, I just think you're going to see people try some wild stuff. You're hearing buzziness about like outside linebackers returning punts.
I am a little
You're
worried.
hearing-
There's so much talk of like how crazy it is, and are they gonna get there and chicken out? But I'm with you.
Don't chicken out. This is my message to special teams coordinators across the nation. do 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 do. Like,
or
do not
our team's gonna
do not chicken out on this. I'm shaking my finger at you, Patrick, but don't like. I'm so hyped about this because watching them practice and like what it could possibly be, what it could turn into. And Bones Fossil, who used to coach for the Rams now is in Dallas, he was like one of the point people on this. And hearing him in the little back hallways of league meetings and before the votes and explaining it to coaches, explaining it to owners, not just the safety element of it, but also leading to more scoring. I mean, you've got an offensive trending league. If you just say to, the coach, half the coaches in the league, like you could score more points this way, then automatically, they start to pivot toward that. But the way that teams can do it, you're running. It's almost like you're running run game plays. Like you're running like you're seeing counter, you're seeing duo. Like
wow.
But in the kick return stuff, like it's really really interesting. I'm telling you, and I think it also, to your point earlier, I do think it helps with the international presence too, because you're going to see people try stuff. You're going to see, oh, can this rugby player come do this for us? And that's his role. And he's like a call up on the roster.
I can't wait for it. It will create a higher scoring average. Now I'm thinking, I wonder if that was part of the pitch and why it did get through. Not because it's necessarily going to be that effective. That's really hard to predict.
Exactly.
But because the field position is just going to be better, because so many people, this is what I worry about, is just going to take the kickoff to the 30, that they're going to accept the touchback and everything, and that field position is just going to be increased, but then you're going to deal with that.
You have to cut off a tenth of your play sheet. If you're an offensive minded coach and you're saying, okay, we'll acquiesce to the 30, like you're cutting off like a tenth or a 12th of your play sheet at that point. So why, if you want everything wide open for you, right? And all of that. But I do think like the reason why you're seeing, to circle back, you're seeing these joint practices get scheduled and against a wide variety of people, because you can't show that tape to anyone else. You can get as close to live action football as possible in a practice setting, so within the safety guidelines and all of that, but still some contact. And you won't really know what any of this, like it is why I compare it to the run game so much. Like you don't actually know what any of this is going to look like until you hit somebody, until you have pads on and do it. But they also don't want to do this. They don't want to show what they've got. Like offensive coaches, defensive coaches, they want to be super vanilla in the preseason, because if they happen to find, that one thing, they don't want 31 other teams to see it. It's like, okay, if it's two non-conference opponents who see it, fine.
and it's kind of like it's like a lot of things with the NFL. We won't really know until the season starts, but that's
what I love.
Really excited about it. I do want to have Sam Schwartzstein on this show. He's been on it before, actually. He works on the TNF Prime Video, and he did a recap with me last year. But he helped write this rule for the XFL, because I don't want to say too much about it, because I did spend I don't know if you'll find this sad or lonely.
I'll probably find it sad.
I definitely watched 30 minutes of this one night at 1 a.m. when I couldn't sleep, and it didn't help me. It didn't help me kind of figure out how this is all going to work. It's very confusing to me, so I feel like I need to see more.
Well, I think that we're going to see, even when we do finally see it, there's going to be meta trends that happen over the course of several weeks, and they're going to be tight-lipped about it, and I'm sure reporters are going to get scolded for video of a kickoff, and when it's it's like apartment buildings.
Trying to goad me into sending him a video.
No,
I'm just kidding.
I want no, including the special teams coaches.
In trouble.
Because you were talking about chicking out. I know a lot of times special teams coaches get to be the sacrificial lamb, right? And you're going to have somebody give up a couple of touchdowns, and maybe and so it's going to be super safe, and we don't know how it's going to turn out.
Right.
And that's the best part.
The wild card, the uncertainty, the theme. But that's one of the cool things about this, though, is I've never met a special teams coach who isn't kind of nuts in the best way. So this is their moment.
It's
again,
giving
my
them
message
life.
to
You're right.
Special
They've been
Teams
kind of
Nation.
marginalized, and that play was marginalized, and anything that gets the excitement of what used to be one of the most exciting plays, I'm all into it. I'm for the the rule where you could choose to go for it on 4th and 5th. I'm all for crazy rules. I think the NFL, we need more of this moving forward. We've done two things now. I love it.
We're waiting on yours.
I'm gonna go simple because the reason I mentioned that is because I was like, okay, we're only gonna get through so many, or the show is gonna be 3 hours, and maybe this seems boring, but it's just simple and it's just true for me. It's CJ Stroud, and that's just like, like, it's not just because my son Walker was the only attendee of the Super Bowl last year, and at least that I saw, that was wearing a CJ Stroud jersey. That's like a little part of it, the joy that it brings my son, because like CJ Stroud made my son, I think, a Texans fan for life. I think it's sticking, and I think he's just going to be with this guy and this team. And I don't know why that is, but for me, because we're separate, I'm here, he's there, and for me, it's like he's just got everything he wants. He's had a great offseason. I've loved the Micah Parsons.
We're talking about CJ now.
CJ,
again.
yes.
Okay.
CJ Stroud.
You never know.
I love the Micah Parsons and CJ Stroud like road show. I love basically every appearance CJ Stroud has had. So I love him as a dude, but I wouldn't really care about that if I didn't love watching him as a player. And like, I start with the quarterbacks that I tend to like, with guys that first like can just make beautiful throws. And usually like at least a starting point, like beautiful throws with anticipation from the pocket. And he reminds me of Phillip Rivers in that way, like Herbert a little bit too. What I liked about Herbert when he first came out, how he gets through the reads so quick, reminds me a little bit of Geno in that way. And so that's like the starting point. And then there's like what he can do off script, which I think is underrated, and what he can do intangibly as a leader. That to me, like, he's just, I hate the like, I know you hate this analysis, Patrick, when it's like he's got it. But I think that is part of it for me, and it all comes together in this package that I actually don't think people appreciated quite how incredible he played last year, because I did go back and watch him this offseason, and I think when you watch him, you can make a strong case that he was like a top 7 or 8 quarterback in the NFL.
A very easy case.
Like as a rookie.
Simple.
And since I've started doing this, I don't think there's maybe anyone else that you could say that about. Like, Luck was sniffing there, but not there. RG3 was sniffing there, but not there. Dak was there. Actually, I think Dak's a good comparison. I think CJ Stroud showed even more about how Dak performed that year. Like, and I just think he'll be like, just knowing everything that we know about him and knowing what's around him and Stephon Diggs and all that stuff. Like, I just think the growth from year 1 to year 2 is just like, I can't freaking wait to watch this dude play.
And I'm not even like tinging at the he's got it analysis,
right,
because the it in this instance, right, is his natural ability as a football player, and also the honesty that he approaches the game with and discussing the game, where you hear CJ Stroud say something, and of course, you know, those of us who agree with him, we're like, hey, he's a ball knower. But like, legitimately, it provides a window into, oh, well, yeah, if you go into the huddle with this guy, of course you're going to believe what he says, and like the way that he discusses a play breakdown. Like, of course, people remember that viral interview with Cooper Kupp and Bridget Condon, right? And so like, you get that level of discussion, and it's like, yeah, that's what it is. Like, this guy is a person who's one of the most talented people on the planet, but I can actually relate to him as a human being. And oh yeah, he's a very good quarterback, and I think that's what it is. And of course, like, that's exciting. And I'm glad the Texans are good now.
Yeah, it's fun. It's such a fun team, also, for so many reasons. But he is at the forefront of that, and like, he speaks how he plays. I have in my notes, CJ Stroud - ball knower, supreme ball knower. Yeah, but he speaks how he plays, in that he has this assuredness, this conviction. So much about what a rookie quarterback has to learn how to do in his first year has nothing to do with anything that happens after the snap. A lot does, but it's all how you control the huddle, how you manage your teammates, how you learn with your receivers, how you get people to do what you need them to do. and how you absorb what other things people need from you. But doing so with such conviction and such an assuredness. I mean, the dude oozes leadership, first of all, for someone so young. It is really fun. Again, we talked about being, as fans of the sport, it is so fun to watch somebody be so, he is like basically an on his sleeve player. Like you're going to know where he's at because he will show you and he'll play like that and he'll be that dude. And I think what's cool is they're not going to have to start in a typical year 2 with him. Like they're not going to have to go through a teaching progression that I would think would be typical for a quarterback going into year 2. I'm really excited to see.
No, you saw it during the season last year.
Yeah,
the difference between him in week 3 to week 14 or whatever was massive.
Yeah, he's advanced. I mean, he has gone past what the normal steps would be when you think about, okay, how do we give this guy what he needs, but not too much because he's still growing and he's a kid and we've got to get, an NFL, full NFL offseason and all of those things. But he showed that very early on. It was super interesting to watch sort of the collective conscious wake up to the qualities and the traits that he had already showed. He already was that guy. And so to see like the collective sport really appreciate, but then I think whatever, he's kind of given that appreciation right back to the sport. I mean, I've loved hearing him talk on the podcast and all those things because it's just fun. You just think this guy is going to be around for a long time, and he didn't show what his ceiling would be, and instead showed an extremely high floor. And that's super important when you think about team building. When you think about when this team is going to be ready to really push, to really go all in, you think about everything centers around how fast you can get through these years, and he's going to go through them in a truncated time.
And the throws are pretty. Like,
oh yeah, they slice.
Like that's sort of like where it starts for me. Like they're just they're just sort of majestic, and the anticipation of it all. And I do want to be careful of expectations. I'm not. I thought now when I think more deeply about it, since we did around the NFL, Justin Herbert was the guy I was most confident going into year 2 would be an MVP candidate, that sort of thing. And his growth since then has been rocky at times. I think there's reasons for that, and I think reasons that CJ Stroud will avoid in terms of the continuity with the coaching staff and certainly the talent around Stroud. But I do want to be careful of just expectations. Some things could be bumpy. It doesn't mean that he's going to climb to the very top of the quarterback ladder this year. But I'm not ruling it out either. Defenses will adjust, but I've seen enough. We know, and it's going to be fun to be along the ride for him. We are going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with some more things that we're looking forward to in 2024. All right, continuing on with the things related to the National Football League, Patrick, that get you up in the morning, that get you going. We've had a little break, and we're back at it.
And I want to get back at seeing teams go from worst to first.
Okay.
We just talked about CJ Stroud, and the Texans were very close. And looking at the Bears, the Chargers, the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Commanders, the Patriots, unfortunately, the Titans. We don't believe it right now, but there's a chance. Of course, we did this exercise on Game Day View, and the obvious answer is the Cincinnati Bengals, right? But I think one of those other teams, despite all of the things that they're facing, has a chance to do it. And it's one of those situations.
Do you have a specific one, or just saying any?
He wants you to say Patriots so bad.
No, I don't.
Do you want me to say the Patriots?
No, I've been emotionally disconnecting. I got a lot of heat for that, but it's just been the facts. Drake May in the mix, though. I'm going to enjoy that.
Yeah.
But no, they're not going to win their division.
Because we just saw the Houston Texans have this incredible turnaround, and the Bears were making I think you can make a case.
Bears, I think so.
Are in that position. Yeah. The Chargers, but
I think the Cardinals, you can, that they'd be a fun team.
Yeah,
probably not win the division, but a fun team.
Yeah, their division kills them, but yeah, they're
for all of these teams. Maybe you could make a case for the Titans, but all of them are better than they were a season ago.
Well, I think the Patriots are going to be better than people think. I was shocked when I saw the spoiler. Unless everything changes on the desert front, like every year we've done a before the season. We've had Bill Barnwell on. He's coming on later this week, by the way. Be excited about that. And drafted over-unders. The fact that the Patriots, I think, were 4.5 or 5.5, yeah, forget that.
Yeah, I'm so
Way
excited
over.
to see what the Bears do. Their defense was already solid, kind of came along a little bit better. Eberflus is kind of maybe coaching for some tenure here, just give or take how the year starts. And I am so excited to see Caleb Williams. I mean, you guys know, living out here in LA, being awake, watching the games, well after the sun has set, he's so special. And obviously this doesn't even need to be said because he was the number 1 overall pick and highly touted prospect and legendary thrower already. But still, putting it all together can be so hard for teams. We've seen that with teams with number 1 overall picks, and that can be really difficult. But I think he has. I don't want to put too much optimism in the Chicago Bears before we actually see proof of concept. But I do think life gets a lot easier when you find the quarterback. I personally think they've found the quarterback, and now building around him will be important. I do want to give you guys my hot Cardinals take because I don't feel like the Cardinals, they're crushed by their division. And so I think they get overlooked a lot, right? Not overlooked in the sense that it's unfair because they've been bad and gone through a lot of different things. But the stuff that they were doing last year, Drew Petzing, Nick Rallis, under the Jonathan Gannon sort of umbrella, it was weird and it was cool. And you would hear quarterbacks talk about it I don't know what they were doing. I hadn't seen what they were doing on defense. They would sometimes do these things where they'd do a walk around pre-snap look where they'd sort of just
they were just trying
and all of a sudden rush to the snap. They were
just trying stuff. And I thought it was cool. I was they were doing a really good job for that. And then you look at the end of the year and it's dead last in EPA per play allowed. So defensively, I did want to balance it with that. I thought it felt like it was cool and it was good and they were overachieving. And then I looked and it was actually their defense was a sieve. Offense totally different. They improved a ton.
But they statistically they were not a good team.
Yes.
Let's be clear on that. Let's be very clear. But sometimes when you see process stuff like that, when you see troubleshooting, when you see what works, what doesn't work, it's almost I would kind of, with those two coordinators, I would almost compare it to when you give when a quarterback has a year to sit and instead of coming right in. I mean, obviously they didn't have a year to sit and cut their teeth on being coordinators and being a real team and all of that. The results were the results and the stats were the stats. But it was similar vibes where, Kyler was hurt. You weren't going into it. You were kind of what is this going to be? Okay, let's just see everything we're not first. Let's try things. Let's do these different things. I'm not saying that they're going to be a contender here. I think they could be really fun. Honestly, I do think that, especially, with, a healthy quarterback and all of those different things and the draft classes that they've put together, they could be really fun.
Sneaky good draft class last year.
Yeah, but I think that they did some stuff that was interesting and fun. And a lot of times teams do not get an opportunity or even a chance to do that without super high stakes. And that could potentially lead to something cool. So it's not I guess it's not a super hot Cardinals take. It's a very lukewarm Cardinals take.
Kyler year 2 is on my long list, which we're not getting to almost any of them at this point. But they were the number 2 rushing attack last year in EPA per play after Kyler returned. Full stop. They were, just by the numbers, about a top 10 offense after Kyler returned. I thought him in that offense, and what you could see he wasn't fully back from the injury physically and was getting up to the speed of the offense, but I thought he did things just as a quarterback that I didn't always see with Cliff Kingsbury. I saw growth, process-wise, and man, that makes me very excited about them, and I think the ceiling is high. We mentioned the Bears, by the way, and all that. We're going to hit on tomorrow's show with Steve Weish and Nick Shook everything we've missed, everything that has happened in the NFL, essentially, as much as we can, as much news rundown that we think matters. One of them is that, the Bears are the Hard Knocks team, which is cool. So that we can get into getting into this team. I'm into 8 weeks straight of Hard Knocks. The first episode, I know people had their doubts on the Giants Hard Knocks, but I found it compelling. I thought it was a good addition. I'm going to give a quick one that you guys don't need to comment on, and then I'll throw it to you, Jourdan. Just a very quick one. It's just like, if you look at Week 18 last year, here are some quarterbacks that did not play. Aaron Rodgers, and that will be playing Week 1, hopefully. Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Anthony Richardson, Joe Burrow, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May. Like, that's a quarter of the league right there. And like, those are all dudes, and they're going to be playing, health willing, Week 1. So that's just a quick one that I'm excited about.
It's so nice that your point actually sets up my point. So thank you for that. I'm looking at like year 2 quarterbacks in general, and I think maybe more excited about these guys than possibly guys that are just coming in and being rookies, because I try not to grade rookies too difficult, like with too much difficulty. There's a learning curve. There's, the whole ship has to get built around them at some point. And like we touched on with CJ Stroud, it's, he's a very pleasant outlier in the sense that so much worked and he really worked and everything really clicked. But the year 2 guys, I mean, obviously we talked about CJ. I am so excited to see. I hope Anthony Richardson gets a full season. I think he is so special. Some of the throws he was making last year before he got hurt, there's some controlled chaos, but in the best way, in that way that makes defenders hesitate. What the heck is this guy going to do? And he can just, he can hurt you every which way. And pairing him, with Shane Steichen, like a lot of these year 2 guys, I mean, Bryce Young, that's to me a really compelling story after what he went through last year and what it must have done in terms of like, how do you manage that mentally? That's going to be really significant, and unproven, really relatively unproven play caller in Dave Canales, and you're going to kind of see, can you right the ship with this young man? Like, can he figure it out? Can they maximize some of the qualities that did make him a really strong prospect, coming out of the draft that weren't necessarily available to him? Does he actually have more skills and more tools around him? And he doesn't qualify structurally, so nobody ding me on this. Please don't yell at me for this. But Jordan Love in year 2 of like being the dude, like,
no, that's not acceptable.
I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm just gonna.
That's actually the end of NFL Daily.
Killed the show.
It's been a good first episode. Like, it's fun. Yeah,
it was all right. Yeah. But year 2 of being the dude, like fully having the reins, fully being, with working fully with Matt LaFleur, fully having sort of the, the shadow, not in a negative way, but the shadow of like the legendary quarterback who came before him, fully away from that building. And I, obviously structurally he does not qualify as a year 2 quarterback, but a year 2 as franchise guy. I loved how he put together that season last year. I loved seeing the collaboration between him and Matt LaFleur. I think it's like so magical when the coach, and the quarterback can suddenly, you can see the planning together. You can see them truly collaborating and troubleshooting together. That's what I think a lot of these year 2 guys do have in common. We have yet to see with Bryce Young, obviously, but they do have that really heady way of being able to vocalize and verbalize what they want, of being able to really construct an offense. All of these young quarterbacks do. And that's really exciting to me. I mean, that's really fun for the sport in general, but it's also really fun when it's like, get out of their way a little bit, let them cook. And I think a lot of these guys have that in them.
And so much of the like, should a quarterback start, should a quarterback sit discussion to me is based on our perception of who they are. And so if it goes bad, right, we perceive them as bad and think that, oh, well, our bias has been confirmed. This guy started early and now he's bad.
Right.
But Bryce was in a horrible situation.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we can go back to look at camp reports and conversations surrounding Jordan Love early in his career, where it's like, this is not working. And I think...
Or Aaron Rodgers. I can't remember, was it Craig Nall or something? Like, he was the 4th quarterback. He was struggling his rookie year in camp.
And I remember it was 2 Super Bowls ago. We were talking to Aaron Jones on Super Bowl Live, and Michael Robinson asked him before the segment, like, "Hey, how's Jordan Love doing?" And Aaron said, "Oh, Jordan Love's ready. Like, this is it. Jordan Love is a quarterback. He's real. He's legit." And Mike Robb was like, "Hey, we're not taping right now. You can be honest." and there was that level of skepticism. And then early on in the season, the skepticism was still there, and all of a sudden he goes nuclear, and it's like, this is it. And Jordan Love would never be questioned now, and I'm with Jordan. Like,
Yes.
I think we can get that from some of these year 2 guys and completely shift our perception because that's football.
Well, Jordan Love specifically is like a bit of a mystery box. I think the floor is higher than we ever would have expected. The ceiling is through the roof. As
Michael Jordan.
Michael
All the
Jordan
Jordans.
would say.
Michael
Family
Jordan.
reunion.
It's
like he's just preposterous. He reminds me of Kaepernick and Josh Allen, at least just in the way that he makes me feel when he sort of first came out. Just like, oh, like anything is possible here. I don't know what's gonna happen, and some of it's gonna be bad. And those are the two guys, and I think it's just because also just their physicality and just their talent that just is undeniable that he reminds me of. Not that he plays exactly like them, but just in the way that he makes me feel like he is an incredible value add as a quarterback, and that is kind of what it's about, at least for me. Like it's like when you're picking which games to watch, ultimately the games that you don't want to watch as much are the ones and the quarterbacks you're not going to be excited about. I'm going to do one more, and then we're going to take one last break, and it's just the Steelers being Steelery. I actually am. I genuinely am into this. Like we have so much. None of us have done a podcast. We haven't talked about football in a while. Like we have a lot to get to, and we're going to get to it. It's called NFL Daily, so we're going to have plenty of time as we build up to this season. But I mean it. Like the defensive front reminds me so much of the Steelers teams in the aughts in the early 2010s. That just like, well, that's what the Steelers are. They're two preposterously good outside linebackers, and then a third that probably is better than your second. And then and that's, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, and I really like Nate Herbert coming in. And then, oh yeah, by the way, there's also like a couple massive difference makers in the front with Cameron Hayward and Keanu Benton, who I think is a Making the Leap type of candidate. If we do a Making the Leap show, like really good last year for them on the inside. And so that's their defense, and it's Tomlin, and they they got Larry Ogunjobi. I think Jerry Porter Jr. He's a dog. Like they're just, I think they're quietly gonna be one of those Tomlin defenses. And then, oh, by the way, it's the Art Smith revival. It's like the run scheme. Like you can fault Art Smith for a lot of things, but it's a pleasing run scheme to watch when it works. And what I think of is just the pulling tackles and stuff. And when Broderick Jones came in last year as a pulling tackle, they improved like day one, and he is just like a monster of highlight blocks on the edge. And now he's moving to left tackle. And who do they take in the first round? Troy Fautanu, who is the most massive, the most intimidating, like pulling blocker. And I don't know if this is all going to work. I have a feeling we're going to be talking with Nate Tice. You're going to be on this show, Jordan, next week about stuff schematically that we're excited about. That's going to be Monday's show. I'll stop talking because I have a feeling Nate's going to hit this. But like those two dudes in Art Smith's running scheme and two really good running backs, I just think that's very Steelery to me, and I think they're just going to be very Steelery.
So he's also rebranded to Art, is what we go from Arthur, but he's going to.
Did I say that?
But he's going to be painting. He's going to be painting.
There we go.
Oh, there it is.
This is where
Thank you.
you're breaking some news here if he's rebranded, because
we will
I
call
like
him Art
Art.
Smith
I
now.
like Art. I think Art is better for it's like kind of more of it's a punch you in the mouth kind of name. Which
Art
is what he's
was
gonna
like
try to
the
do.
holding the microphone stand a little too tight. I mean, Arthur was holding
Yeah.
the microphone stand a little too tight as a head coach. Art is the one cooking up a 1980s style with some twists running scheme in the lab.
Art's gonna run triple option. Art Smith says, "Give me the biggest, beefiest offensive lineman
Yes.
you've got, and we're gonna pull your ass to the sideline." Like Art Smith.
go.
Art Smith's got some lettuce,
Yeah.
right? Like
Art's at the whiteboard with an easel. He's
Yeah.
drawing up plays.
they walk in, and all the whiteboards in the building have been changed out.
I love it.
And I think there is some truth. Like he was in that stressful position as the head coach of a football team with a million different things to do and to worry about. And now he can be Art Smith, right?
Mhm.
He can just focus on play calling and facilitating an offense.
He's free to be Art.
Yeah, he can be Art. Be the art that you want to see.
I want to see them run pistol. We're going to get to it. Don't let Nate steal pistol from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I do want to, make the first NFL Daily apology just to all the great people and storylines and trends that I didn't get to, but I'm going to save them.
Oh.
We're going to do them at some point. That's podcasting 101 there.
I've learned a lot today.
You'll use everything.
I've learned a lot today.
Eventually. Let's take one last quick break, and we're going to wrap things up after that. Jaunty. Back on NFL Daily, wrapping up our first show together. A lot of emotions, a lot of football. Really glad you guys were here for it. And just to let everyone know, like, what is NFL Daily going to be? Like, what is coming up? I think the first week and plus is a good example of what's coming. Our show tomorrow, we're going to talk about, as I mentioned, a lot of everything that's happened since there's been a podcast here on this feed. So Nick Shook, Steve Weiss is going to join me for that. We're also going to have one of our insiders, Ian Rappaport, I believe us just for a little news as part of that show. I'm going to be breaking down, kind of previewing camps with Mina Kimes and Bill Barnwell later in the week. On Monday, we mentioned the scheme show we're going to do with Nate, Tyson, and Jourdan. And then it'll be great to have Colleen Wolfe back in the studio. Patrick, hopefully you're available for that one. I'm really hoping you are.
Anytime.
Pressure.
And so that's the next week, and going from there. It's daily. We're going to be posting 5 days a week, overnights for now. Well, that might get adjusted once we move on into training camp and more news is coming out. And even Monday mornings, you guys will have something in your feed. And so before we go, I do want to do something that we might do every day. We might do some days, and it's like a little after dinner mint. Like when I would go to my grandfather's house, Heinz Rosenthal, in Connecticut, every Sunday we'd go there, and we'd get back to his house, and he would have this little jar of mints. After eights, they were called. Very old school, and you would have like a little after dinner mint. And it was we were home from the restaurant. We would always go out to eat, and it's just like a nice little aftertaste, a nice little thing to leave you on. And so our after dinner mint, our after eight, today is gonna be a picture that I was so excited to see while we were on our break. If you're watching on YouTube, check us out there too. This is Austin James Roberts, born May 25th. So just a few days since we talked to you last. And Eric, as the ATN listeners will know, is a great producer for us, and he's doing some work from home for now, but he's spending time with Austin, and he will be back with us in the studio doing a lot of work for us, I believe in August. And in the meantime, Randy Chavez is holding it down behind the scenes. So we love you too, Randy, but we really love Austin James. So congratulations to Eric and to Leanne. And especially to Austin. You got some badass parents, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, existence is awesome. You're gonna enjoy it, and I look in.
You don't know any alternative, frankly.
Well,
I mean, existence or not, but yes, compared to the alternative, you're gonna enjoy it.
And when people, because it's always interesting when you have kids, and it's like, you tell them how old your kids are. It's like, oh, that's a good age. And I was thinking like, a month? Like, oh, that's a good age. Like they're all great ages. And, Eric grinding out and doing everything and being a new dad. It's awesome.
And great dude. And you'll get to know him too, Jourdan. When he's back, and you're right. I push back hard now because now that Ellis, my daughter, is 12, it's now to the point where people think it's not a good age. And I'm kind of like, F you, like
they're all
like, that's my daughter you're talking to. It's like, oh, teenage,
it's a great age.
Teenage daughters. It's like, all right, how you're so happy, like that you're like 1-year-old or 2-year-old, like walked without themselves or whatever, or they did one little thing. Like, can you imagine how proud I am of what my badass 12-year-old is doing on a daily basis? Like, it's exponential.
Exactly.
The pride. That's all. Let's hit the music, Randy. For this first episode of NFL Daily, again, thank you to everyone for their patience and their support and their love. It means a lot to us. And for checking out the show. And hopefully You will tomorrow too. Until then, for Patrick and Jourdan, I'm Gregg Rosenthal. See you next time.